Okay, so here's how I assemble my K-Mac adjustable camber and caster strut top mount. So first of all, I have to pick which one of these two I want to use. These sort of bushings that go on top of the spring, two different sizes. One is a little bit thicker, one is a little thinner. I initially tried using the thicker one, which fits nice and tight here on the spring. You see it takes a little bit of effort to get in there, and when you have this inserted, it's actually a lot tighter. And I found that what ended up happening is when I was driving this way, there's a lot of friction between the inside part of the bushing and the outside part of this here when it's inserted. I know it's inverted right now, but when it's inserted and when you put it tightly inside the spring, it kind of squeezes on here, so it doesn't really allow it to spin freely, and this bearing is not really doing its job. So what ended up happening, I guess, is as I was steering, this part got torn away from the other part here that actually covers the bushing, because I guess in order for it to spin, it just wasn't able to spin freely. So that's what ended up happening. So I guess what I'm left with is I have to use the smaller size bushing. This one fits a lot easier, so it should allow this bushing to do its job better. So I'm gonna go ahead and pop that in right now. Okay, so I put that on top of the spring. It fits nice and easy. And then here's how it goes on the actual strut assembly. Put the spring on first. Make sure it's right side up. Yep. Put this here. Then I'll take the small metal bushing part here. Put that in there. Take the strut top, put it on top, then take this nut here, and I screw that in. Obviously I'm gonna hold this here like this, so it's a little bit easier. And of course I'll tighten this more with tools, but it's nice and hand tight now. The metal bushing on the bottom is inserted properly. And so the other thing that I noticed that's different between this unit and the one on the second strut top is that there's a spherical bearing inside here, and this one is nice and free. You're able to spin it freely. It's hard to twist it the other way, but at least it spins very freely. Whereas on the other unit, see that this spherical bearing is super tight. So when it's on, there's no way I can spin this. The only way it actually spins is if it spins the entire the shock, the strut rod that goes through it spins along with it. So I understand that maybe this would work well when the weight of the car is on there, and that this is not supposed to really spin, and the spinning is taken up here by this bearing, right? But as you do turn the steering wheel, I guess there should be, right now it actually loosened up the nut when I turned it, but you should be able to spin this, I believe. And what ends up happening is that when I'm driving and I'm turning left and right, as you saw a little bit earlier, when I try to turn this to the left, it is able to turn, and the reason it turned is because it actually loosened this top nut. So you can see the nut is spinning with it, and eventually, because when I turn it clockwise, not always the knot is retightening, but it's always turning when I turn it counterclockwise, and what ends up happening is the nut gets loose. So when I was taking this apart, I found that this nut was actually quite loose, and I know it does get kind of locked on top with the second nut that goes over the plate that goes on top of the strut top, but it still was loose in the car, and I'm not sure if this spherical bearing being so tight, if that is causing any issues. Right now I'm tightening it. When I tighten this nut on top, this is, I've tightened it, well by hand, and there you go. Now I cannot spin this at all, whereas on the other unit it's actually just, it's spinning nice and free.